अविनयमपनय विष्णो दमय मनः शमय विषय मृगतृष्णा भूतदया विस्तारय तारय संसारसागरतः दिव्यधुनी मकरन्दे परिमलपरिभोगसच्चिदानन्दे श्रीपतिपदारविन्दे भवभयखेदच्छिदे वन्दे सत्यपिबेदापगमे नाथ तवाहं नमामकीनस्त्वम् सामुद्रो हि तरङ्गः क्वचन समुद्रो न तारङ्गः उद्धृतनगनघविदनुज दनुजकुलामित्रमित्रशशिदृष्टे दृष्टे भवति प्रभवति न भवति किं भवतिरस्कारः मत्स्यादिभिरवतारैः अवतारवतावता सदा वसुधा परमेश्वर परिपाल्यो भवता भवतापभीतोऽहम् दामोदर गुणमन्दिर सुन्दरवदनारविन्द गोविन्द भवजलधिमथनमन्दर परमं दरमपनयत्वं मे नारायण करुणामय शरणं करवाणि तावकौ चरणौ नारायण करुणामय शरणं करवाणि तावकौ चरणौ इति षट्पदी मदीये वदनसरोजे सदा वसतु इति षट्पदी मदीये वदनसरोजे सदा वसतु।
सदत्य फल्गुने मनसि कुम्भिरासिष्टे भास्कर्ये शुक्ले पक्षे द्वितीयायां तिथौ तथा साध्यसामान्यविधिना श्रीरामकृष्णदेवस्य पार्षदभक्ताच्युतजनहृदयेषु नित्यलीलाभाव विकासनाय निखिलजनगणमध्ये तन्माहात्म्यविशो बुद्धि तत्प्रीतये च कुर्वादिपूर्वकं श्रीरामकृष्णदेवस्य शुभजन्मतिथिनिमित्तः सर्वदेवदेवीस्वरूप श्रीरामकृष्ण पूजनं तदीयं श्रीचरणाशिदोकं करिष्ये।
विश्वस्य धाता पुरुषस्त्वमाद्यो व्यक्तेन रूपेण ततं त्वयि
मण्डलाकारं व्याप्तं येन चराचरं तत्पदं दर्शितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। सर्वसुधीरत्नविराजितपदाम्बुजः वेदान्ताम्बुजसूर्याय तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। चिन्मयं व्यापितं सर्वं त्रैलोक्यं सचराचरं तत्पदं दर्शितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। चैतन्यं शाश्वतं शान्तं व्योमातीतं निरञ्जनं बिन्दुनादकलातीतं तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। अनेकजन्मसम्प्राप्तकर्मेन्धनविदाहिनि आत्मज्ञानाग्निदानेन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। मन्नाथः श्रीजगन्नाथो मद्गुरुः श्रीजगद्गुरुः मदात्मा सर्वभूतात्मा तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। ब्रह्मानन्दं परमसुखदं केवलं ज्ञानमुक्तिं द्वन्द्वातीतं गगनसदृशं तत्त्वमस्यादिलक्ष्यम् एकं नित्यं विमलमजलं सर्वधी साक्षिभूतं भावातीतं त्रिगुणरहितं सद्गुरुं तं नमामि। ॐ सर्वे वेदा यत्पदमामनन्ति तपांसि सर्वाणि च यद्वदन्ति यदिच्छन्तो ब्रह्मचर्यं चरन्ति तत्ते पदं संग्रहेण ब्रवीमि। ओमित्येतत् एतद्धेवाक्षरं ब्रह्म एतद्धेवाक्षरं परम् एतद्धेवाक्षरं ज्ञात्वा यो यदिच्छति तस्य तत् एतदालम्बनं श्रेष्ठम् एतदालम्बनं परम् एतदालम्बनं ज्ञात्वा ब्रह्मलोके महीयते।
हे रामकृष्ण त्वयि भक्तिहीने कृपाकटाक्षं गुरुदेव नित्यं कृपाकटाक्षं गुरुदेव नित्यं हे राम कृष्ण हे राम कृष्ण हे राम कृष्ण त्वं पासि विश्वं सृजसि त्वमेव त्वमादिदेवो विनिहंसि सर्वं हे रामकृष्ण त्वयि भक्तिहीने हे रामकृष्ण त्वयि भक्तिहीने कृपाकटाक्ष गुरुदेव नित्यं कृपाकटाक्षं गुरुदेव नित्यं हे रामकृष्ण हे रामकृष्ण हे रामकृष्ण हे रामकृष्ण मायां
ॐ हृदयकमलमध्ये राजितं निर्विकल्पं सदसदखिलवेदातीतमेकस्वरूपं प्रकृतिविकृतिशून्यं नित्यमानन्दमूर्तिं विमलपरमहंसं रामकृष्णं भजामः निरुपमादिसूक्ष्मं निष्प्रपञ्चं विरीतं गगनसदृशमीशं सर्वभूताधिवासं त्रिगुणरहितसच्चिद्ब्रह्मरूपं वरेण्यं विमलपरमहंसं रामकृष्णं भजामः पितरिदुम् अवतीर्णं ज्ञानभक्तिप्रशान्तिः प्रणयगलितचित्तं जीवदुःखासहिष्णुं धृतसहजसमाधिं चिन्मयं कोमलाङ्गं विमलपरमहंसं रामकृष्णं भजामः
कृपाकटाक्षं गुरुदेव नित्यं हे रामकृष्ण हे रामकृष्ण हे रामकृष्ण हे रामकृष्ण विधृत्य रूपं नरवत्वया वै विज्ञापितो धर्म इहाति गुह्या हे रामकृष्ण त्वयि भक्तिहीने हे रामकृष्ण त्वयि भक्तिहीने कृपाकटाक्षं गुरुदेव नित्यं कृपाकटाक्षं गुरुदेव नित्यं हे रामकृष्ण हे रामकृष्ण हे रामकृष्ण हे रामकृष्ण तपोथते त्यागमदृष्टपूर्वं दृष्ट्वा नमस्यन्ति कथं न विज्ञा हे रामकृष्ण त्वयि भक्तिहीने हे रामकृष्ण त्वयि भक्तिहीने कृपाकटाक्षं गुरुदेव नित्यं कृपाकटाक्षं गुरुदेव नित्यं हे रामकृष्ण हे रामकृष्ण हे रामकृष्ण हे रामकृष्ण श्रुत्वात्र तेना भवन्ति भक्ता दृष्ट्वा वयं त्वां न तु भक्तियुक्ता हे रामकृष्ण त्वयि भक्तिहीने हे रामकृष्ण त्वयि भक्तिहीने कृपाकटाक्ष गुरुदेव नित्यं कृपाकटाक्षं गुरुदेव नित्यं हे रामकृष्ण हे रामकृष्ण हे रामकृष्ण हे रामकृष्ण सत्यं विभुं शान्तमनादिरूपं प्रसादये त्वामजमन्तशून्यं हे रामकृष्ण त्वयि भक्तिहीने हे रामकृष्ण त्वयि भक्तिहीने कृपाकटाक्षं गुरुदेव नित्यं कृपाकटाक्षं गुरुदेव नित्यं
कारायकशेखरां स्मितमुखीमापि नवक्षोरुहां पाणिभ्याम् अलिपूर्णरत्नचषकं रिक्तोत्पलं बिभ्रतीं सौम्यां रत्नकुटस्थरक्तचरणं ध्यायेत् परामम्बिकां ध्यायेत् पद्मासनस्थां विकसितवदनां पद्मपत्रायदाक्षीं हेमाभां पीतवस्त्रां करकलिदलसत्हेमपद्माम्बराङ्गीं सर्वालङ्कारयुक्तां सततमभयदां भक्तनम्रां भवानीं श्रीविद्यां शान्तमूर्तिं सकलसुरनुदां सर्वसम्पत्प्रदात्रीं देव्याय या तदमिदं जगदात्मशक्त्या निशेषदेवगणशक्तिसमूहमूर्त्या तामम्बिकामखिलदेवमहर्षिपूज्यां भक्त्या नुतास्मविदधातु शुभानिशान् यस्या प्रभावमधुरं भगवान् अनन्दो ब्रह्मावरश्च न हि वक्तुमलं बलं च सा चण्डिका अखिलजगत्परिपालनाय नाशाय चाशुपचयस्य मदीं करोतु या श्री स्वयं सुकृतिनां भवनेषु अलक्ष्मीपापात्मनां कृतधियां कृतेषु बुद्धि श्रद्धा सदां कुलजनप्रभवस्य लज्जा तां त्वां नतास्म परिपालय देवि विश्वं या मुक्तिहेतुरविचिन्त्य महावदात्वम् अभ्यस्यसे सुनीतीन्द्रियदत्तसारैः मोक्षार्थिभिर्मुनिभिरस्तसमस्तदोषैः विद्यासि सा भगवती परमाहिमाया मेधासि देवि विदिताखिलशास्त्रसारा दुर्गासि दुर्गभवसागरनौरसङ्गा श्रीगैडवहारिकृते युगदाधिवासा गौरी त्वमेव शशिमौलिकृतप्रतिष्ठा देवी प्रसीद परमा भवती भवाय सद्यो विनाशयसि कोपवती कुलानि विज्ञातमेतदधुनैवैदस्तमेतन्निदं बलं सुविपुलं महिषासुरस्य दुर्गायै दुर्गपारायै सारायै सर्वकारिण्यै ख्यात्यै तथैव कृष्णायै धूम्रायै सततं नमः अतिसौम्यातिरौद्रायै नतास्तस्यै नमो नमः नमो जगत्प्रतिष्ठायै देवी कृत्यै नमो नमः या देवी सर्वभूतेषु विष्णुमायेति शब्दिता नमस्तस्यै 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 नमो नमः या देवी सर्वभूतेषु चेतनेत्यभिधीयते नमस्तस्यै 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 नमो नमः या देवी सर्वभूतेषु बुद्धिरूपेण संस्थिता नमस्तस्यै 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 नमो नमः या देवी सर्वभूतेषु शक्तिरूपेण संस्थिता नमस्तस्यै 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 नमो नमः या देवी सर्वभूतेषु मातृरूपेण संस्थिता नमस्तस्यै 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 नमो नमः योगानशेषान् अपहंसि तुष्टारुष्टादुकामान् सकलानभीष्टान् त्वाम् आश्रितानां न विपन्नराणां त्वाम् आश्रितां हि आश्रयदां प्रयान्ति विद्यासु शास्त्रेषु विवेकदीपेषु आद्येषु वाक्येषु च कातुदन्या ममत्तकर्तेति महान्धकारे बिभ्रामेत्येव ददीव विश्वं रक्षांसि यत्रोग्रविशाश्च नागाः यत्रार्योदस्य बलानि यत्र यद्धावानलो यत्र ताब्धिमध्ये तत्र स्थिता त्वं परिभासि विश्वं विश्वेश्वरी त्वं परिभासि विश्वं विश्वात्मिकाधारयसीति विश्वं विश्वेशवन्त्या भवती भवन्ति विश्वाश्रया ये त्वयि भक्तिनम्राः प्रणतानां प्रसीद त्वं देवी विश्वार्तिहारिणि त्रैलोक्यवासिनाम् ईढ्यै लोकानां वरदा भव प्रणतानां प्रसीद त्वं देवी विश्वार्तिहारिणि त्रैलोक्यवासिनां ईढ्यै लोकानां वरदा भव सिन्दूरारुणविग्रहां त्रिनयनां माणिक्यमौलिस्फुरत्तारानायकशेखरां स्मितमुखीम् आपीनवक्षोरुहां पाणिभ्याम् अलिपूर्णरत्नचषकं रक्तोत्पलं बिभ्रतीं सौम्यां रत्नघटस्थरक्तचरणां ध्यायेत् परामम्बिकां ध्यायेत् पद्मासनस्थां विकसितवदनां पद्मपत्रायदाक्षीं हेमाभां पीतवस्त्रां करकलिदलसत् हेमपद्मां वराङ्गीं सर्वालङ्कारयुक्तां सततम् अभेदां भक्तनम्रां भवानीं श्रीविद्यां शान्तमूर्तिं सकलसुरनुदां सर्वसम्पत्प्रदात्रीम् ധ്യായേ कृतं भुजे देवीं तरुणारुणविग्रहां वराभयकरां शान्तां स्मितोत्फुल्लमुखाम्बुजां स्थलपद्मप्रतीकाशपादां भोजसुशोभनां शुक्लां वरधरां धीरां लज्जापटविभूषितां प्रसन्नां धर्मकामार्थमोक्षदां विश्वमङ्गलां सुनाथवामभागस्तां भक्तानुग्रहकारिणीं ॐ यथाग्नेदाहिका शक्ति रामकृष्णे स्थिता हिया सर्वविद्यास्वरूपां स्तां शारदां प्रणमाम्यहम्. ധ്യായേനാരായണം സ്വാമി വിവേകാനന്ദരൂപമന്ദിരീശ്വരസമുത്പന്നം സപ്തസ്സുപുരാദാഗതം ധ്യാനനിമഗ്നരൂപം സ പത്മാശഗൗരവിഗ്രഹം ഗോരിപുഞ്ചം സമാപിത്യ ലോകകല്യാണകാരിണം നമസ്യേതിരാജായ വിവേകാനന്ദസൂരിയെ സച്ചിസുഖസ്വരൂപായ സ്വാമിനേ താപഹാരിണി. ഓം കാലഭ്രാഭാം കടാക്ഷൈഃ അരികുലഭൈരാം മരിബുദ്ധേന്ദുരേഖാം ശംഖം ചക്രം കൃപാണം ത്രിശകമവികൈരൈരുദ്ധഹന്തീം ത്രിനേത്രാം സിംഹസ്കന്ധാതിരൂഢാം ത്രിഭുവനമഖിലം തേജസാ പൂരയന്തീം ധ്യായേദ്ദുർഗാം ജയാഖ്യാം ത്രിദിശപരിവൃതാം സേവിതാം സിദ്ധികാമൈഃ. സാമ്രാജ്യസൗഖ്യം ജനപതികായ സന്ധാരയിഞ്ചീര ചിഹ്നവേഷം ഇന്ദ്രവേദം പശുവേദനം യോ ഉദയാമയം തം പ്രണതോസ്മി ബുദ്ധം നമോ നമോ ബുദ്ധദിവാകരായ നമോ നമോ ഗൗതമചന്ദ്രികായ നമോ നമോ അനന്തഗുണധരായ നമോ നമോ ശാക്യനന്ദനായ. മധുരസരളവാക്യൈ ഈശ്വരത്വം പ്രകാശ കുശഗതപതി കുശഗതപരിശേഷോ അപി ഈശപുത്രവന്തോ യഃ തമതിശ പവിത്രമേരിജം ഭഗവന്തം പരമപ്രേമമൂർത്തിം തിരുനാഥം ഭജാമഹ. ഓമൈം ഇതപൂർവം ബാണബുദ്ധിദേഹധർമാധികാരതോ ജാഗ്രസ്വപ്നസുഷുപ്ത്യവസ്ഥാസു മനസാ വാചാ കർമ്മണാ ഹസ്താഭ്യാം പദ്ഭ്യാം യസ്മിതം യദുക്തം യത്കൃതം തത്സർവം ബ്രഹ്മാർപ്പണം ഭവതു സ്വാഹ. ഓം പൂർണ്ണമദ പൂർണ്ണമിദം പൂർണ്ണാത് പൂർണ്ണമുദച്യത്തെ പൂർണ്ണസ്യ പൂർണ്ണമാദായ പൂർണ്ണമേവാവശിഷ്യത്തെ. ഓം ശാന്തി ശാന്തി ശാന്തി. പ്രീതാം പുണ്ടരീകാക്ഷ സർവയജ്ഞേശ്വരോ ഹരി തസ്മിൻ തുഷ്ടേ ജഗത്തുഷ്ടം പ്രീണിതേ പ്രീണിതം ജഗത്. ഹരി ഓം തത്സത്.
राम कृष्ण गोविंद नारायण राम कृष्ण गोविंद नारायण श्री राम कृष्ण गोविंद नारायण राम कृष्ण गोविंद नारायण राम कृष्ण गोविंद नारायण श्री राम कृष्ण गोविंद नारायण राम कृष्णायनि प्रेमतो पिलचिन राम कृष्णायनि प्रेमतो पिलचिन मोमैन చూపవేమి నారాయణ నీ మోమైన చూపవేమి నారాయణ రామకృష్ణ గోవింద నారాయణ రామకృష్ణ గోవింద నారాయణ శ్రీ రామకృష్ణ గోవింద నారాయణ అండజవాహన పుండరీకాక్షని దండజేరినానయ్య నారాయణ అండజవాహన పుండరీకాక్షని దండజేరినానయ్య నారాయణ రామకృష్ణ గోవింద నారాయణ రామకృష్ణ గోవింద నారాయణ శ్రీ రామకృష్ణ గోవింద నారాయణ వాసుదేవ ముకుంద వనమాలి చక్రధర వాసుదేవ ముకుంద వనమాలి చక్రధర నారసింహాచ్యుత నారాయణ నారసింహాచ్యుత నారాయణ రామకృష్ణ గోవింద నారాయణ రామకృష్ణ గోవింద నారాయణ శ్రీ రామకృష్ణ గోవింద నారాయణ పతితుడనని నిన్ను ప్రతిమాలు పుణ్య సీతాపతి నన్ను కావవేమి నారాయణ పతితుడనని నిన్ను ప్రతిమాలు పుణ్య సీతాపతి నన్ను కావవేమి నారాయణ రామకృష్ణ గోవింద నారాయణ రామకృష్ణ గోవింద నారాయణ శ్రీ రామకృష్ణ గోవింద నారాయణ రామదసుని బ్రోవ ప్రేమతో Krishna, Jai Jai Rama 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 Krishna. Pahi Rama Krishna. Rama Krishna. Jaya Jaya Rama Krishna. Jai Jai Rama Krishna, 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 Jai Jai Rama Krishna.
From the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. This is his Sri Ramakrishna's visit to Pandit Vidyasagar. Sri Ramakrishna's conversation now turned to the knowledge of Brahman, Master. Brahman is beyond vidya and avidya, beyond knowledge and ignorance. It is beyond maya, the illusion of duality. The world consists of the illusory duality of knowledge and ignorance. It contains knowledge and devotion and also attachment to lust and greed, righteousness and unrighteousness, good and evil. But Brahman is unattached to these. Good and evil apply to the jiva, the individual soul, as do righteousness and unrighteousness. But Brahman is not at all affected by them. One person may read the Bhagavatam by the light of a lamp, and another may commit a forgery by that very same light. But the lamp is unaffected. The sun sheds its light on the wicked as well as on the virtuous. You may ask, how then can one explain misery and sin and unhappiness? The answer is that these apply only to the jiva, the living being. Brahman is unaffected by them. There is poison in a snake, but though others may die if bitten by the snake itself is not affected by the poison. What Brahman is cannot be described. All things in the world, the Vedas, the Puranas, the Tantras, the 6 systems of philosophy, all have been defiled like food that has been touched by the tongue. for they have been read or uttered by the tongue. Only one thing has not been defiled in this way, and that is Brahman. No one has ever been able to say what Brahman is. A man had 2 sons. The father sent them to a preceptor to learn the knowledge of Brahman. After a few years, they returned from their preceptor's house and bowed low before their father. Wanting to measure the depth of their knowledge of Brahman, the father first questioned the older of the 2 boys. "My child," he said, "you have studied all the scriptures. Now tell me, what is the nature of Brahman?" The boy began to explain Brahman by reciting various texts from the Vedas. The father did not say anything. Then he asked the younger son the same question, but the boy remained silent and stood with eyes cast down. No word escaped his lips. The father was pleased and said to him, "My child, you have understood a little of Brahman. What it is cannot be expressed in words." Men often think that they have understood Brahman fully. Once an ant went to a hill of sugar. 1 grain filled its stomach. Taking another grain in its mouth, it started homeward. On its way, it thought, next time I shall carry home the whole hill. That is the way shallow minds think. They don't know that Brahman is beyond one's words and thought. However great a person may be, how much can he know of Brahman? Shukadeva and sages like him may have been big ants, but even they could carry at the most 8 or 10 grains of sugar. As for what has been said in the Vedas and the Puranas, do you know what it is like? Suppose a man has seen the ocean and somebody asks him, "Well, what is the ocean like?" The first man opens his mouth as wide as he can and says, "Oh, what a sight! What tremendous waves and sounds!" The description of Brahman in the sacred books is like that. It is said in the Vedas that Brahman is of the nature of bliss. It is Satchidananda, existence, knowledge, bliss. Shuka and other sages stood on the shore of this ocean of Brahman and saw and touched the water. According to one school of thought, they never plunged into it. Those who do cannot come back to the world again. In Samadhi, one attains the knowledge of Brahman. One realizes Brahman. In that state, reasoning stops altogether and man becomes mute. He has no power to describe the nature of Brahman. Once a salt doll went to measure the depth of the ocean. It wanted to tell others how deep the ocean was, but this it could never do, for no sooner did it get into the water than it melted. Now, who was there to report the ocean's depth? A devotee asked this question. Suppose a man has obtained the knowledge of Brahman in Samadhi. Doesn't he speak anymore? Sri Ramakrishna. Shankaracharya retained the ego of knowledge in order to teach others. After the vision of Brahman, a person becomes silent. He reasons about it as long as he has not realized it. If you heat butter in a pan on the stove, it makes a sizzling sound as long as the water it contains has not dried up. But when no trace of water is left, the clarified butter makes no sound. If, however, you put an uncooked cake of flour in that butter, it sizzles again. But after the cake is cooked, all sound stops. Just so, a person established in Samadhi comes down to the relative plane of consciousness in order to teach others, and then he talks about God. The bee buzzes as long as it is not sitting on a flower. It becomes silent when it begins to sip the honey. But sometimes, intoxicated with the honey, the bee buzzes again. An empty pitcher makes a gurgling sound when it is dipped in water. When it fills up, it becomes silent. But if the water is passed from it into another pitcher, then you will hear the sound again. The rishis of old attained the knowledge of Brahman. One cannot have this so long as there is the slightest trace of worldliness. How hard the rishis labored. Early in the morning, they would go away from the hermitage and would spend the whole day in solitude meditating on Brahman. At night, they would return to the hermitage and eat a little fruit or roots. They kept their minds aloof from the objects of sight, hearing, touch, and other things of a worldly nature. Only thus did they realize Brahman as their own inner consciousness. But in the Kali Yuga, that is, in the present age, man, being totally dependent on food for life, cannot altogether shake off the idea that he is the body. In this state of mind, it is not proper for him to say, I am he. When a man does all sorts of worldly things, he should not say, I am Brahman. Those who cannot give up attachment to worldly things and who find no means to shake off the feeling of I, should rather cherish the idea, I am God's servant. I am his devotee. One can also realize God by following this path of devotion. The jnani gives up his identification with worldly things, discriminating not this, not this. Only then can he realize Brahman. It is like reaching the roof of a house by leaving the steps behind one by one. But the Vijnani, who is more intimately acquainted with Brahman, realizes something more. He realizes that the steps are made of the same materials as the roof, namely bricks, lime, and brick dust. That which is realized intuitively as Brahman, through the eliminating process of not this, is then found to have become the universe and all its living things. The Vijnani sees that the reality which is nirguna, that is without attributes, is also saguna with attributes. A person cannot live on the roof of a house for a long time. He comes down again. Those who realize Brahman and Samadhi come down also and find that it is Brahman that has become the universe and its living beings. In the musical scale, there are the notes sa, re, ga, ma, pa, dha, ni in ever-increasing pitch. But one cannot keep one's voice on ni a long time. The ego does not vanish altogether. The man coming down from Samadhi perceives that it is Brahman that has become the ego, the universe, and all living beings. This is known as Vijnana. The path of knowledge leads to truth, as does the path that combines knowledge and love. The path of love, too, leads to this goal. The way of love is as true as the way of knowledge. All paths ultimately lead to the same truth. But as long as God keeps the feeling of ego in us, it is easier to follow the path of love. The Vijnani sees that Brahman is immovable and actionless like Mount Sumeru. This universe consists of the three gunas, that is, sattva, rajas, and tamas. They are in Brahman, but Brahman is unattached. The Vijnani further sees that what is Brahman is also the Bhagavan, the personal God. He who is beyond the three gunas is the Bhagavan, with his 6 supernatural powers. Living beings, the universe, the mind, intelligence, love, renunciation, knowledge, all these are the manifestations of his power. If an aristocrat has neither house nor property, or if he has been forced to sell them, one doesn't call him an aristocrat anymore. God is endowed with the 6 supernatural powers. If he were not, who would obey him? Just see how picturesque this universe is, how many things there are. The sun, the moon, the stars, and how many varieties of living beings, big and small, good and bad, strong and weak, some endowed with more power, some with less. As the all-pervading spirit, he exists in all beings, even in the ant. But the manifestation of his power are different in different beings. Otherwise, how can one person put 10 others to flight, while another can't face even one? The Master, Sri Ramakrishna, continued, "There's nothing in mere scholarship. The object of study is to find means of knowing God, of realizing him. A holy man had a book. When asked what it contained, he opened the book and showed that on all the pages were written the words, Om Rama, and nothing else." What is the significance of the Gita? It is what you find by repeating the word 10 times. Gita, 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 Gita. It is then reversed into Tagi, which means Tyagi, which means a person who has renounced everything for God. And the lesson of the Gita, taught by the Gita, is, O man, renounce everything and seek God alone. Whether a person is a monk or a householder, he has to shake off all attachment from his mind. Chaitanya Deva set out on a pilgrimage to southern India. One day he saw a man reading the Bhagavad Gita. Another man, seated at a distance, was listening and weeping. His eyes were swimming in tears. Chaitanya Deva asked him, "Do you understand all this?" The man said, "No, revered sir, I don't understand a word of the text." "Then why are you crying?" asked Chaitanya. The devotee said, "I see Arjuna's chariot before me. I see the Lord Sri Krishna and Arjuna seated in front of it talking. I see this and I weep." Why does a Vijnani keep an attitude of love towards God? The answer is that I consciousness persists. It disappears in the state of Samadhi, no doubt, but it comes back. In the case of ordinary people, the I never disappears. You may cut down the Ashwatha tree, but the very next day sprouts will shoot up. Even after the attainment of knowledge, this I consciousness comes up. Nobody knows from where. You dream of a tiger, then you awake, but your heart keeps on palpitating. All our suffering is due to this I. The cow cries hamba, which means I. That is why it suffers so much. It is yoked to the plow and made to work in rain and sun. Then it may be killed by the butcher. From its hide shoes are made, and also drums which are mercilessly beaten. Still it does not escape suffering. At last strings are made out of its entrails for the bows used in carding cotton. Then it no longer says hamba, hamba, I, but tuhu, tuhu, thou, thou. Only then are its troubles over. O Lord, I am the servant, thou art the master. I am the child, thou art the mother. Once Rama asked Hanuman, how do you look on me? And Hanuman replied, O Rama, as long as I have the feeling of I see that thou art the whole and I am a part. Thou art the master and I am the servant. But when, O Rama, I have the knowledge of truth, then I realize that thou art I and I am thou. The relationship of master and servant is the proper one. Since the I must remain, let the rascal be God's servant. I and mine, these constitute ignorance. My house, my wealth, my learning, my possessions. The attitude that prompts one to say such things comes of ignorance. On the contrary, the attitude born of knowledge is, O God, thou art the master, and all these things belong to thee. House, family, children, attendants, friends, all are thine. One should constantly remember death. Nothing will survive death. We are born into this world to perform certain duties, like the people who come from the countryside to Calcutta on business. If a visitor goes to a rich man's garden, the superintendent says to him, this is our garden, this is our lake, and so forth. But if the superintendent is dismissed for some misdeed, he can't carry away even his mango wood chest. He sends it secretly by the gatekeeper. God laughs on two occasions. He laughs when the physician says to the patient's mother, don't be afraid, mother, I shall certainly cure your boy. God laughs in saying to himself, I am going to take his life, and this man says he will save it. The physician thinks he is the master, forgetting that God is the master. God laughs again when two brothers divide their land with a string, saying to each other, this side is mine and that side is yours. He laughs and says to himself, the whole universe belongs to me, but they say they own this portion or that portion. Can one know God through reasoning? Be his servant, surrender yourself to him, and then pray to him.
Today is a very, very auspicious day, and I would like to begin by reading from a small work, Tales and Parables of Sri Ramakrishna. As you may have noticed while listening to Swami Vedanta ji, Sri Ramakrishna used to speak in very simple language, the language of the common people, using the allegories and parables, examples from everyday life. So here is a very interesting parable that I am going to read. Once there lived two yogis who were practicing austerities with a view to realize the God. One day, Narada, the divine sage, was passing by the hermitage when one of them asked Narada, "Are you coming from heaven?" Narada replied, "Yes, that's so." The yogi, one of the yogis who were meditating for years, said, "Do tell me what you saw the Lord doing in heaven." Narada, the sage, replied, "I saw the Lord playing by making camels and elephants pass through the eye of a needle." At this, the yogi observed, "There is nothing in it to marvel at. Nothing is impossible for God." But other one exclaimed, "Nonsense, that is impossible. It only shows that you have never been to the Lord's abode." The first man was Bhakta and had the faith of a child. Nothing is impossible to the Lord, nor can anyone know his nature fully. Everything can be predicted of him. Another very interesting parable. But faith works miracles. Once the son of a certain man lay at the point of death, and it seemed that none could save his life. A monk, however, said to the father of the dying son, "There's but one hope. If you can get in a human skull the venom of a cobra mixed with a few drops of rainwater under the constellation of a Samadhi star," the name of a star in the sky, "your son's life can be saved." Now you can remember the medicine that this monk prescribed, not a very simple one. There is but one hope. If we can get in a human skull the venom of a cobra mixed with a few drops of rainwater, which should be collected under the constellation of a Samadhi star, the kind of star that shines up only on specific days, then your son's life can be saved. The father looked up the almanac and found that the constellation of the Samadhi star would be possible in the ascendant on the morrow, next day. So he prayed, saying, "O Lord, do thou make possible all these conditions and spare the life of my son." With extreme earnestness and faith and longing in his heart, he set out on the following evening and diligently searched in a deserted spot for a human skull. At last he found one skull under a tree, held it in the hand, and waited for the rain, praying. Suddenly a shower came, and a few drops of rainwater, were deposited in the upturned skull. The man said to himself, "Now I have water in the skull under the right constellation of the star." Then he prayed to God again with full faith, "Grant, O Lord, that the rest may be obtained." In a short time, he discovered, not far from there, a toad and a cobra springing to catch it. In a moment, the tiny toad jumped over the skull, followed by the cobra, and its venom fell on the skull. So all combined, the strange star under which the skull, the rainwater, and a cobra venom. With overwhelming gratitude, the anxious father cried out to God, "O Lord, by thy grace, even impossible things are made possible. Now I know that my son's life will be saved." Therefore, Sri Ramakrishna says, if you have true faith and earnest longing, you will get everything by the grace of the Lord. Now, Sri Ramakrishna is putting in very simple language some very profound truths of spiritual life. You know, I'm reminded of a very famous statement in the Bhagavata Purana, which is the most profound and most important devotional classical work in Hindu tradition. 18 verses divided into 12 sections called skandhas, 335 chapters. There is one statement, it says, Arakshidam tishtadi daiva rakshidam, surakshidam devahatam vinasyati. Arakshidam tishtadi daiva rakshidam, surakshidam devahatam vinasyati. It's a very profound statement. You can find Sri Ramakrishna seems to have written a commentary on this statement. What it says is, if something is saved by God, then even the whole world opposes it. It will happen. On the other hand, when you are fully protected by all worldly means, you have plenty of money, plenty of wealth, plenty of sycophants, followers, people around to take care of your needs, everything apparently very positive, somehow it doesn't click, it doesn't work. So there is one unknown factor which is beyond the empirical, beyond the human comprehension. It's not within the framework of human calculation and not within the framework of human capabilities. This statement in the Bhagavata Purana comes from a very interesting character. The name of the character is Prahlada. And the Prahlada is a 5-year-old child. And according to Sri Ramakrishna, this Sri Ramakrishna that day, this Prahlada is the greatest devotee among the innumerable great sages and saints, including Narada, mentioned in our epics and Puranas. Prahladaschasmi daityanam, the Lord Krishna says in the Gita. And Sri Ramakrishna says Prahlada is the greatest devotee. He was so great that he was a 5-year-old child born to a demon who punished him, tried to kill him, tried to get him killed just because he was a devotee of God. So his father's name was Hiranyakashipu, who was a demon. And he did everything possible to get his own son killed for the simple crime that his son happened to be a devotee of God, a good person. And this boy had a hobby. He used to collect his friends. Most of them were children. You know, demon is an interesting character in the Hindu epic Puranic literature. People who used to do harmful things to others used to be called demons. So most of his friends with whom he had to study were children of these demons. So once a while, this boy, Prahlada, used to gather his friends around him and instruct them, giving them spiritual instructions. And Kaumara Ajarit Prajna, I said, when you want to practice spiritual values or ethical values, moral values, humanistic values, you should make sure you should learn them when you are small. The children should learn great values, spiritual values from their parents, not only from the teachers, which comes later, but from the parents. Kaumara Acharit Prajna. It means From childhood days, children should learn spiritual values. Sri Ramakrishna one day went to one of the theaters. Theaters, Calcutta have many theaters. And some of these theaters were run by Girish Chandra Ghosh, a great well-known playwright of those days. So one day Sri Ramakrishna went to see a drama written by the same author, playwright Girish Chandra Ghosh. And when Prahlada's character appeared on the stage, he went into Samadhi. So you can read it in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna and in Sri Ramakrishna's life. So, and that Prahlada's greatest instruction is something very interesting. It's a great value. You find in our life, we work very hard, we make great calculations, we demonstrate, we display great powers of organization, management, everything wonderful, plenty of money, all planning, everything fine. But at the last moment, something seemed to be missing. And that that upsets the entire plans and programs. Something just doesn't click. This happens. The best of calculations, the best of if you are a student of European history, you find the great military commanders like Napoleon Bonaparte, the last Battle of Waterloo. So often historians call it the unfortunate day before it rained the previous night, that Napoleon's cavalry could not function, artillery could not move. This happens in every aspect of human life. The best of our calculations, preparations, hard work just do not click, just do not work. At the last moment, something seems to be missing, and that creates the opposite result. On the other hand, the opposite also is fortunately true. You don't make any preparations. Sometimes the fortunate people, God's will work. You feel yourself incapable of making the necessary preparations, the hard work required. You don't have the efficiency needed for getting some great things done. But somehow things seem to work. The opposite picture of this. So that is why arakshidam tishtadi daivarakshidam. You are not protected, you are not safeguarded by many the worldly skills or empirical achievements. But tishtadi means it's sustained, it remains, it works. On the other hand, surakshidam, you have made all preparations, plenty of money, plenty of preparations, all infrastructure put in place, but it just doesn't click. So, here Sri Ramakrishna is talking about this miracle of faith. Is this story, is this parable? Actually, parable will make sense when you try to interpret it. In this parable, for example, think of the sadhus, the monks who gave this unique, complex prescription, on a specific day, a specific star should be on the sky. And then, that day, you should be able to find a skull that is upturned. You should not touch it. And then it should rain. And the water should be collected on the skull. And it doesn't stop there. You need cobra venom. You can't just catch out a cobra and collect venom and put there. It should fall of its own on this upturned skull, which has collected rainwater. And it all should happen under this star, which again doesn't appear every day, only once a while. So you can find this is a very interesting prescription. What it means is, if a person gets strong faith, even the impossible becomes possible. If you don't have faith, if that one important aspect is missing, you may have everything, but things just do not click. This also happens. In fact, the very life of the author of the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna it's a very classic example. Many of you I know most of you may be familiar, but there will still be a few amongst you who may not be familiar with one aspect of this great man's life. Mahendra Gupta. He was a big celebrity, a highly educated person, well-learned, an absolutely respectable gentleman of his locality. And in fact, many of Sri Ramakrishna's own monastic disciples were his students, were inspired by him to go to Sri Ramakrishna and learn spirituality. But this man's private life was a bit tragic. His wife was a very wonderful lady, and his family members, but when there was a huge family, there was quarrels and different opinions among them. So one day this man leaves his home, the Mahendra Gupta. So if you read the huge book, The Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, you can see Yam. Yam stands for Mahendra Gupta. You have to remember, he was a highly educated person. It is said in his life that he was so well versed in biblical literature of all things, mind you, because the Church of Scotland was very active in Calcutta in those days. And there were quite a few learned, not Catholic, but mostly Anglican, Scottish Church, and Unitarians who were very learned persons who were teaching in different education institutions in Calcutta. And this man was highly respected by all these people. But one day he found that his own private life became so tragic. So he left his home at about midnight, left his home accompanied by his wife. He wanted to commit suicide. Went round the city in a hackney carriage. Finally, he reached one of his friend's home at midnight. His friend did not really welcome him, so he left that place, continued his moving around the city, and then finally reached a place close to Dakshineshwar. For his own nephew was residing, Siddheshwar Majindar, and he stayed there for 2-3 days. After some days, his nephew asked him, would you like to go and meet sage Paramahamsa living in the temple of Dakshineshwar on the banks of river Ganges? And Yam agreed. Together they came to Dakshineshwar, and it was just an accident. How a tragedy leads to a new life in the life of a great man. So a man who almost wanted to commit suicide began a new life. So Yam, accompanied by his nephew, came to Dakshineshwar, where Sri Ramakrishna was living. And the very first meeting itself had a great impression on him. His nephew never came there again. But for Yam, it was a new life. And after he came there again, and as he began to listen to Sri Ramakrishna, his parables and stories and instructions, like this, which I already read a few parables, it began to change his mind, his life, his attitudes and his thoughts. And that was the beginning of a new life. And then Sri Ramakrishna said that if you have faith in God, the even darkest clouds can disappear. If you don't have the faith, then even a small problem can become a great disaster. On the other hand, if you have faith, even the most difficult situation can really disappear, and life can become happy experience. This is what Sri Ramakrishna says. Now, talking about Sri Ramakrishna, we should remember, we talk about Sri Ramakrishna, we read about Sri Ramakrishna today, not just because of these instructions and parables. Sri Ramakrishna's message came to this world through his great disciple Swami Vivekananda. Now, one of his most important message was, that is the main theme of Vivekananda's talks, that is, all religions, all cultures, all traditions do have something to contribute to the human civilization. And in this context, the very idea of interfaith harmony, which we are talking about today, interspirituality, interfaith harmony, interfaith dialogues. We often, there is San Francisco as an interfaith council. Every big city in the US has got interfaith councils. The very idea of interfaith harmony came from Sri Ramakrishna in modern times. This is something not very well understood even among the learned circles. The idea that all religions contain the same truth expressed in different languages, in different words, that idea is as old as the Vedas. Ekam sat vipra bagudha vadanti. If you go to Webster Street, you see the old temple. You can see an inscription in Sanskrit on the Filbert Street door of the old temple. You can see Ekam Sat Vipraha Bagudha Vadanti. Means truth is one, sages call it by different names. It is found in the Rigveda Samhita, the first mandala. So Rigveda Samhita is almost 7,000 years old. So the idea that all religions are trying to define and understand God, but use different words, different names, but the reality is one. It is as old as the Vedas. And also you can find the same idea expressed in Mahabharata, Vasudeva Kudumbakam, the whole world is one spiritual family. You can find in Shankaracharya's books and so on. But in modern times, that idea came to Western world through Vivekananda. So Vivekananda who brought this idea when he expressed this in his first Chicago address in 1893, September 11. But Vivekananda himself got this from Sri Ramakrishna. That's what you have to remember. So this ancient truth expressed in ancient scriptures, which are 5,000, 6,000 BC, the Rigveda Samhita, which again was expressed in so many other scriptures of Hindu tradition. But in modern times, it was expressed in vivid language by Sri Ramakrishna. So you find Sri Ramakrishna living in Dakshineshwar. People of different types went to see him. There were Christians or different denominations, Hindus of different denominations again, Buddhists, Sikhs, all of them went to see Sri Ramakrishna. And they all listened to him. And they all got something in him. They saw in him something that they had to agree with. Because the fact that spirituality transcends differences, linguistic differences, cultural differences, nationalistic differences. Spirituality is something universal, something essentially humanistic. And that spiritual truth can be found, should be found in all religious traditions. If you look beyond the socio-anthropological differences, you can find the same spiritual truth is expressed and described in all ancient holy books of all religious traditions. Only we should be able to look at them, looking at them beyond the socio-anthropological differences. So that is the greatest contribution of Sri Ramakrishna. Another important aspect of Sri Ramakrishna is, if you read the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, you find suddenly he goes into Samadhi. Suddenly he reaches kind of ecstasy, going beyond body consciousness, communicating with the spiritual truth directly. I mean, he is not in this world. He appears to have gone to a different world mentally, totally oblivious of his own body consciousness. Now, the same Sri Ramakrishna also taught people how to pray, how to worship. If a Christian went to him, he told him, you should try to be a true Christian. If a Buddhist went to him, he asked him to be a true, genuine Buddhist. Whatever tradition you may belong to, in that tradition, you can find the highest truth and you should realize it. So in Sri Ramakrishna, you find a kind of spiritual university. He taught how to pray, taught people how to pray, how to worship, how to do puja. At the same time, he also talked about the highest transcendental Advaitic spiritual experience. So today we are celebrating Sri Ramakrishna's anniversary. His contribution to this world is still being recognized frequently. Very much we may not be aware of this fact. I want to drive home this important contribution of Sri Ramakrishna. Today you go to any civilized place, if you want to address educated people, enlightened people, you have to talk to an audience of enlightened people, you cannot talk to them, well, my God is only God, my religion is only true religion, your religion is devil, or your God is devil, your religion is wrong. You cannot talk like that without being questioned, without being ridiculed, without being laughed at. This was not the case till 1893. It was the year 1893 that Swami Vivekananda brought this message, Sri Ramakrishna's message to the world. But today you can see the impact. Today everyone admits, at least privately admit the fact that every religion contains some great spiritual truth. This was almost unthinkable before Sri Ramakrishna's advent. Historically, Sri Ramakrishna's advent has got a great significance because it brought the world together spiritually. The idea that spiritually humanity is one. Humanity is one spiritual family. That idea is a unique contribution of Sri Ramakrishna. And I want to emphasize this point because maybe it is a time when we need to emphasize that idea more and more. Thank you. Namaskar. After this, I have some very important announcements. This year, we are celebrating the 125th anniversary of the Vedanta Society of San Francisco. It's called Vedanta Society in Northern California, San Francisco. The 125th anniversary. Swami Vivekananda founded our society on April 14, 1900. Now, we have a number of important events this year, beginning with our Shanti Asrama retreat. Please remember, in your calendar you can mark Shanti Asrama, April 26th. So, and then we have another important event, Memorial Day, May 26th. Shanti Asrama retreat, as you know, will be held in Shanti Asrama. It's about 100 miles away from here. And the second important event is Memorial Day, May 26th. And we used to have interfaith programs every year for the last almost 40 years. We used to have this program. This year we will have a very grand program because we'll be celebrating 125th anniversary of this Vedanta Society. And then we have another important special program at South Bay on August 31st. So this is something which I want to draw your attention to. We are celebrating the 125th anniversary of the founding of Vedanta Society of San Francisco. It's called Vedanta Society of Northern California, San Francisco. Swami Vivekananda founded this in April 1900s. That's an important announcement. And after this, we will have flower offerings by devotees, and it will be followed by prasad luncheon. And in flower offering, normally what we do, we distribute flowers. Our devotees and volunteers will distribute flowers to those who are assembled here. And after receiving the flower, you will remain seated. After the flower distribution is over, I will recite a mantra, 2-3 mantras, which you will repeat after me. After that, your flower will be collected by devotees and placed here on behalf of all of you. Now we can start collection. Our volunteers, devotees will be distributing flowers right now. I will recite these mantras. You can repeat after me. Om Aim Esha Pushpanjalihi Sangaya Savaranaya, Sashaktikaya, Savahanaya, Sabhaktaya, Sarvadeva Devi Surupaya, Sri Ramakrishnaya, Vaushat. Next one. Om Aim Esha Pushpanjalihi Sarvadeva Devi Surupinye Sri Sharada Devi Namaha. Next. Om Namah Sri Yadirajaya Vivekananda Suraye Satchit Sukhaswarupaya Swamine Tapaharine. You can. Our devotees collect flowers and flower of here. After the flower is turned, you please remain seated until our ushers will direct you to Vivekananda Hall for Prasad luncheon. So after the flower offering is over, our ushers, volunteers will direct you to Vivekananda Hall for Prasad luncheon. Thank you.